Whoa, that was a pretty intense intro. Hello, and welcome to my mage guide. Today we've got like 100 things we're doing. The main purpose of this video is just to sit around with me and learn about Sunfury, particularly Leydrinker. And Leydrinker is this guy right here. We'll eventually migrate talent points into this, but for now we're going to start with the most basic stuff, okay? And to teach you that, what we're going to do is use WeakAuras, like this guy here. Now this is the whole lesson plan that I've set up with WeakAura. And in the description below, you'll see that wago.io / whatever. That's this lesson plan. It's like a syllabus. And I'm going to walk you through every step of this so that you'll be able to explain everything on this screen. So let's just get started. If you want to follow along, download the WeakAura and then use this import button and bring it in there. But for now, we're just going to start with your basic stuff. And full disclosure here, I've had a couple glasses of wine just to kind of get loosened up a little bit, and I know what you're thinking. Wine, isn't that a drink for babies? No. I'm old. I'm 40 something. I have a sensitive stomach. And I don't say that I'm 40 something so that you think, oh, he's trying to, who knows what age he is. He could be 41, he could be 49. No, it's literally that I have forgotten what age I am. And all you 40 somethings will know it out there. And I do want to take just a second and address those elderly people like myself and say, I feel you. I'm here with you. It seems like every year we make less money and ibuprofen costs just keep getting higher and higher. So I'm really glad that you spent what could be the last few months of your life with me now. So the rotation will start with just barrage or blast, okay? Which one are we going to use? What are we doing here? Let's first look at arcane charges, okay? Now this tooltip is pretty informative, but what it's basically saying is the more charges you have, the more damage you're going to do. If you have no charges, Arcane Blast is going to cast super slow, and it's going to be really weak. So don't use that, okay? And then Barrage spends all these charges. And before we get cranking on this, I want you to note my position, okay? So I am about 20 yards away from this targeting dummy, which if I was like over here, then I would be 40 yards away, which would kind of be max range. Arcane Explosion is about half this range. So if I was standing here and I used Arcane Explosion, I would hit here. So just to kind of put things into perspective as to where I'm standing and kind of why I'm standing there. So let's just look at lesson 1. And if you're following along, this was in WeakAuras under the Sunfury Tutorial Charges and Builders. And what I did is I clicked Load and I unclicked this Never. Okay. After we're done with this lesson, we're going to go through some review. Okay. But hopefully I'll teach you what it is. So builders and spenders, charges, blast, and barrage. Blast, it's easy. One blast, one charge. We'll get 4 charges. And then we'll use barrage, and we'll get rid of them. You're wondering what I'm doing. Right down here is what is my spell list of things I'm doing, okay? So one more time, this is real basic stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then barrage. Oh, what's that? We'll address that later. In fact, let's get rid of that now. Let's go to options and go to opacity. And we'll get rid of this. Boom. We just magically lost them. No way, it's not distracting. Now, that's basically it with blast and barrage. But what we're going to do at this point is we're going to put in impetus. That's this talent here. And if you don't say it like that, you will trigger someone halfway across the world like I did. Impetus. And let me explain to you what that does. Impetus is, you have like a 10% chance whenever you cast Blast to gain an extra charge. Now, let's say you were at 4 charges, okay? Let's see if Impetus will proc. Nope, 1 to 1. Oh, it procced right there, you see that? So I got 2 charges from that. Now, if I do it again, and I don't have any proc showing, but let's just say that I got impetus again. Instead of, of course, giving me 2 charges or whatever, it gives me a 10% damage buff. So that's pretty nice. And that's basically it for the first lesson. It's very simple stuff, charges and stuff like that. Now, let's look at the core feedback loop. Now this is a really good one. And again, I'm just going to the lesson 2 and then loading. Oh, wait, first. Let's do a little review. I think review is important, even with the basic stuff, because this is in a building block type of setup. So if you don't understand the first lesson, you may not grasp the second one. And in the description below, on some of these lessons, I'll have other videos that I've done that go into a deep dive of that lesson, explaining what are charges and stuff like that. Just in case you didn't totally grasp it here, you'll be able to head over there and maybe understand there. So on this review, the question is, how do we build and spend charges? Well, that's pretty easy. We blast to build and barrage to spend. Okay, that makes sense. What spells give charges and how many? Oh, okay. Well, blast will give 1 unless impetus procs, then you get 2, right? The arcane orb, when you shoot it out, you get 1 charge, and then you get 1 charge per mob it hits. So let me show you that. That's 1, and then boom, all the rest of them. Because I technically would have got theoretical charges, 1 for releasing it, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would have got 6 charges, but you can only have 5. So, and then barrage releases them. And you notice I shot out a bunch of barrages that time, but this time I only shot out 1. That's because it's dependent on this guy over here, this little cleaving guy. That basically means the more charges you have, the more it's going to cleave. So I got 2, and I'm going to shoot that out. See, I got 1, 2. That's how that works. Okay, so we've kind of answered that question there. And okay, how does impetus affect charge counting? Well, let me go back to the thing. We're going to jump ahead just a minute. Touch of the Magi will give you all 4 charges, but we'll get into that when we get into a later lesson, okay? But just so you're aware of it. Now, how does impetus affect charge counting? Well, we kind of went over that with if you were here on 4 charges and you got impetus on your 5th theoretical charge, it would give you a 10% damage buff because it can't give you more charges, right? It's you're capped on charges, so you get the buff instead. And yeah, that's it. That's it for lesson 1. All right, lesson 2. We are going to load and then unclick that Never. Okay. And now we have this here, and I call this feeding the phoenix. Okay. The whole idea I want to incorporate into here is to create a story that has these metaphors that then we can mold to characteristics of arcane mage that make more sense. I don't know if that made sense, but let's just go. We use blast to get spheres, okay? Now after we get 5 spheres, we'll cast blast or barrage. You'll take either one. See, that's barrage, and then this is blast. So I'm feeding the phoenix blast or barrage here to get spheres, okay? 4, and then 5, and then the next one I cast will be 6. It doesn't want spheres anymore. Now it wants burden, and I can get rid of burden or use burden with blast or barrage. So it's kind of like spheres. I can consume it, and now I got this guy, which is glory, and that only can be consumed by barrage. Now watch this. Oh man, what was that black stuff? Well, that was Twilight Devastation on my helmet chant. But now we're at 2 spheres. Why are we at 2 spheres? Let's see if we can figure this out. Okay, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now we gotta start paying attention. We're at 5. 1 more, and then switches over to burden. Burden wants you to cast blast or barrage. For giggles, we'll do barrage. Look what happened. We got 1 sphere, and then when we cast this glory with barrage, we'll get another sphere. And then, so this is the basic feedback loop. You're feeding the phoenix. So what would you say the phoenix's favorite food is? Well, it'd be barrage, right? Because this is blast or barrage. Burden is blast or barrage, but glory is only barrage. So there's, 3 barrages out of its meal plan out of, only 2 blasts. So We'll just keep going. So we know every time this pops up, we'll be doing a barrage afterwards. So let's have our fingers kind of remember that. Okay, so I know I'm going to cast a blast now, so that will turn into burden. So let me think about this. If we had a plan of using blast on burden, I know I'm going to go blast, blast, and then barrage, right? Blast. Oh, I ran out. Ran out of time. So we'll get back to 5. Okay. So now we're at 5. So I'm going to blast, blast, barrage, because I know after on my 6th sphere, it switches over to my burden for my 7th, and then glory for my 8th. Blast. To reset again. Okay, blast and then barrage. And then you can just keep going. 4, 5. Switch over. See what I'm doing? Because I know as soon as I see burden, I'm blasting and then barraging. But I don't have to blast here. I could barrage there. But look what happened. Look what happened here. I've got glory, which wants what? Barrage, right? But I have no charges, which means I'm weak AF, right? So you don't want that. But now look, I have full charges. That's because glory refunds all these charges. So when you use barrage, usually you lose all your charges. Like you've taken all that power and wrapped them all up in these orbs and just flung it out in barrage. And then you're dry, you're empty. But glory will spend the charges and then automatically refund them back to you, okay? Another talent that we're going to look at is called intuition, and that does the same thing. So let's see, let's check our review to make sure I haven't missed anything. I don't want to miss anything. Okay, here we go. If I have 4 spheres, okay, if I have 4 spheres, how many blasts or barrages do I need to cast to get to a glory? Let's see. I have 4 spheres, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just put this on the board. 1, 2, and 4. So I know I have to cast 1 for my 5th sphere, 2 for my 6th sphere, and then I'll do another blast here instead of barrage. That's 3 to consume burden, and I got to glory. So how many casts of blast does it take to get from 4 spheres to glory? 3. And then I'll use barrage and keep my meteor down. See, once you've fed the phoenix, it's happy, and it shoots down these meteorites. Now later on, we're going to use Arcane Surge, which you know, like brings out your phoenix in his full badassery. Okay, and that's pretty cool. Let's double check our review. Okay, what spell must be used to consume glory? Well, the phoenix's favorite food, right? Barrage. That has to be used for glory. What happens after glory is consumed, and how many spheres should you have at that point? Oh, that's actually a good question. Let's see if we can make it well answered. All right, what happens after glory is consumed? Well, we know that we get the meteorites come down. We know that happens because we fed our phoenix our favorite food. We've spent all of our charges because we used barrage, but glory gives us back all of our charges. Okay, so there's that part of it. And then how many spheres should I have at that point? Well, I've spent them from here. So let's say we're at 0 when we have burden. Okay, so that means I've spent 1 blaster barrage here for burden, and then 1 barrage for glory. So that has given me 2 spheres, because spheres are accumulated by casting what? Blast and barrage, right? So let's just see this kind of in motion. I'm going to get some charges by shooting more about to make this a little quicker. 4. See, now what I'm doing is I'm just going. See, I'm not hesitating because I know if I blast here, I'm going to barrage here, and if I barrage here, I'm going to blast here. Usually. It depends on what's going on. Right now, I don't have any procs. So this is the rotation. This is the core feedback. So I think that's pretty well explained, if I don't say so myself. Oh, Nether Precision. Nether Precision is such a fun one. So we'll go on Nether Precision, unclick Never. And for this one, we do need to put our opacity back on so that we can see these procs that we're getting. Now, Nether is something that you get after you cast clear casting. Now, you can get clear casting by just casting arcane spells, and you'll see this stuff kind of pop up in front or around the character here. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, there it is. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on using missiles to consume this buff, okay? So I have it, and then I'm going to shoot missiles out. And I got 2 stacks of Nether. Now, Nether is just like spheres or burden. It can be consumed by blast or barrage. So let's get clear casting again, because that's just incredible. So we're not focusing on this up top yet. Let's do another clear casting, and then we'll start working this in. Okay. So we have clear casting. We'll use it. We'll get Nether. So we could do blast, barrage. Let's do a blast, barrage. See what I did there? I timed that Nether to consume the burden and glory. Let's see if we can get something similar. Okay, I'm going to hold on to this clear casting just so I can show you, okay? So I'm going to use missiles, get my Nether, spend my first Nether on burden, and then my second one on glory. Isn't that cool? So just that alone, this whole thing is beautiful. This system alone is just the beauty of Sunfury. You know, missile, I shot out a lot because I'm wearing the 4-set stuff. And then another blast, I think. Because I don't want to shoot out my barrage if I can't recover my charges. Okay? And we'll get into recovery a little bit in more detail later on. But your biggest recovery is orb. That's your biggest recovery. So like, let's say I shoot that out, and now I've got burden. So if I shoot orb out to my charges, and then use barrage, and then barrage, so I'm recovering these charges. That's the idea of recovery. Okay. Let's see what our review is on this lesson, and see if there's anything I overlooked. I'm getting up there. I'm getting old. I'm forgetting stuff every day. It's ridiculous. How do you get Nether? Well, not to put you on the spot, but you consume clear casting, right? And you get clear casting by what? Being an arcane mage, shooting out stuff, blasting stuff, arcane explosion, orb, all kinds of any arcane spell will do it. Okay. Now let's look at the next one. What does it do to blast and barrage? Well, I didn't tell you exactly what it did. I just told you get it, right? It enhances the damage of blast or barrage. So it's kind of like juicing it up. It's almost like seasoning that blast or barrage so make it a little more enticing, you know, to the Phoenix. Because he's not a basic bitch. He likes stuff a little spicy, you know? He likes it a little caliente. Well, mine does. I don't know about yours. Your might just be bland old rice and milk kind of Phoenix, but mine, he likes a little spicy. Okay. What question is Nether asking? List combos. Okay. So what question happens here? It's asking you a question. Let me get Nether. Alright, so I've got clear casting. I'm going to consume it and get Nether. Right? And it's asking me, what 2 spells do you want to cast? Do you want to do blast, blast barrage, barrage blast, or barrage barrage? See how I put that in kind of like a little matrix of all the permutations of those 2 spells? That's what it's asking you. It's just asking you, how do you want to flavor this? How do you want to season this? And then you've got to ask yourself, well, can I afford to use a barrage now and spend all my charges? Or do I have to keep blasting? If you can recover those charges with orb, or if you know you're coming into a touch, yeah, feel free to barrage. Or if you've just got an orb just kind of laying around, if you wanted to go with 2 orbs, you could do that. I personally don't run with 2 orbs, but anyway. Now, let's see the next lesson. I'm really excited about this next one. This is the core of it, right? This is Leydrinker. This was the name that you saw at the beginning of the video. Now on Leydrinker, what we have are these. I put these 2 procs popping out. Okay, you will get a proc called Intuition, which is consumed by Barrage. So it's kind of like Glory was. Okay, and then you'll get Leydrinker, which is exclusively consumed by Blast. Okay, so Intuition exclusively consumed by Barrage, Leydrinker exclusively consumed by Blast. Okay, so this Intuition, what this does is a lot like Glory. Like I was saying earlier, when you cast it, I'm just going to show you. I don't know why I'm talking about it. All right, let me just show you. I'm going to wait for this Intuition class to cast. And it loves Intuition. This is the Phoenix's favorite food. Absolute favorite food, okay? So I'm just going through a rotation, waiting for a proc. I'm just really searching for clear casting at this point. I have noticed when I'm filming the proc rate for clear casting. Wait a minute, am I an idiot? I am an idiot. Look at this. We don't even have Intuition. I'm waiting for a procs that aren't even happening. This is why I keep reminders. Let me double check my reminder. This is us, by the way. Let me check my reminders here. Oh, this is something else I was working on. Okay, yeah, I forgot to put that in as a reminder to change my talents back. But we don't need this guy, so we're going to put this over here for Leydrinker, which is one of these procs I was talking about, and we'll get rid of this guy and put in Intuition. Intuition, just like I said, is basically Glory. And what Leydrinker does is it takes that blast that you have and it spreads it. It like amplifies its damage over the other mobs around it, okay? And ley, in like magic lore terms, is kind of like a ley line is like this magical pathway or conduit to other magical stuff, right? So like a Leydrinker, I like to think of it like you're conjuring up this magic bestowed upon you somehow and focusing it in on this blast that devastates everyone around it, which is like a Twinkie to this Phoenix. But the favorite food of Phoenix is always Intuition, so I'll always want to cast that first. So let's get going here. And this time we'll see Procs because dirt to dirt, we're talented in it. Alright, we got that. We're going to use this, and then we're going to blast Barrage for the Birdie Glory. See that up top here? And why I'm blasting at 4 charges instead of releasing them is for the impetus. Remember? We want that to proc. We want that 10%. Oh, Intuition, spend it. Just like that. That is exactly how you should treat that when you're first starting. It is like a 2-second thing. So I'll show you, or I'll try to show you, how much time you have before it really expires. You can like finish the cast you're working on. Like if I'm channeling missiles like this and I have Intuition, I could finish that channel. But it's not like I can go do a bunch of different stuff. There's Intuition. Wait for Leydrinker to pop up. It procs based on your clear casting, and we're not getting a whole lot. So let's do some changes. We have this guy here, which increases your proc rate. We don't need that. We'll put that there. Okay. So now we can get some more proc rates. Now this is starting to really form more into the real meat and potatoes of Leydrinker. You've got this guy sitting over here. That doesn't belong there. It's going to go down here later. But this is just basically shooting out more orbs when you cast Barrage. So this just kind of adds a layer of complexity that isn't really necessarily needed. Another layer of complexity that isn't necessarily needed right now is Time Anomaly. I like playing with Time Anomaly just because it adds that extra little thing to do. But for training and learning purposes right now, we're not going to really focus on that. So let's see if we can get Leydrinker to actually proc. So here's clear casting. Now we have both. I'm going to choose the Intuition first. And I got plenty of time over here on this Leydrinker. You see how it shut down extra stuff? It's kind of hard to see because the screen is full of icons. But that's what Leydrinker does. There we are. We got Leydrinker again. And then Blast. Yeah, Blast. We got mana for it. And right now I know I'm going to do a Blast, right? To do Burden. Or you know what I could do? I'm going to do Barrage, Orb, and then that Intuition proc that also had a Glory attached to it. It's finding these little alignments like that, or setting yourself up is I want to say essential to your DPS. But it definitely helps. It definitely helps if you can identify these patterns and be like, oh, this permutation will be like this in 3 spells. Because you can usually shoot out the next 3 spells confidently. You know what I mean? There's like an 80% chance it's going to be right? But then you start looking, because you can look like 6 spells out, and you're like, oh, that's only like a 40% chance that's going to happen, right? And you can look 12 spells out and say, what are my cooldowns? How many spheres do I have? When will I get glory? All this kind of stuff. And if I had no procs, you have like a 20% chance of it being right 12 spells down the road. You see what I mean? So what I would suggest is just think about the next 3 spells. And if that's too much, just think about the next 2 spells of what are the next 2 things I'm going to cast. And a lot of it is Blast or Barrage. You're using missiles just to get Nether. That's all you're doing. You're just cashing it in to get Nether. Okay? So let's see what our review is on that one. Alright, which is more important? Intuition or Leydrinker, and why? Well, Intuition is, because it's your Phoenix's favorite food. And it hits like a truck. Okay? And then Leydrinker is secondary. It's like the extra little Twinkie. You know, my Phoenix likes it. But he'd rather have an Intuition. Okay? So I'd use that Intuition first, and then Leydrinker last. Leydrinker has a longer time that you can use it, so that you can line up something with it. Like you can line up a Burden to it, which increases the damage of Blast or Barrage, or you can line up a Glory to Intuition. You see, so I think that kind of answers it. It's just Intuition is just better. That's why you'd use it first. I'm just clicking random buttons for some reason. All right, now how are each proc consumed? Okay, well let's look at the actual procs as they stand. The Intuition is used by what? Barrage, right? It's exclusively consumed by Barrage. And Leydrinker is exclusively consumed by Blast. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say you have Intuition and Glory. That is a huge barrage right there. Because not only is that barrage getting the benefits of Intuition, it's also carrying the weight of Glory and however many charges you have. That is a big hit. Okay? Just like with Blast, Leydrinker, Burden. That kind of combo would go together well. Then, of course, you'd want Impetus or something like that stacked on top of it for it to be viable. So, let's take a look at the next one. And this is why I like this. Wait, when would you not immediately use Intuition? Okay. That's a good question. Let's say you're channeling out a Aether Attunement, or this guy here. Let's say you're channeling that out, and this is the thing that you get for free for having the 4-set. Or let's just say you're just shooting out normal missiles, and you're like, ugh, I want to get those last missiles in so that I can increase the damage through Harmony. I gotta get those last missiles in, because Harmony increases the damage from Barrage with the more missiles you pump into them, like up to 20 times. But you don't get to 20 very often unless you've got Attunement flying up. So you're going to hit him with that, and then you're going to be like, bam, Barrage. That's the time that you would want to hold on to it. And it's kind of dicey. You're playing a gambling game, okay? It's like a 2-second buff, okay? So finish the thing you're casting and then cast it, or just cast it and move on, okay? That's my recommendation. Let's take a look at what else we've got going on here. When you not immediately use it, okay? And that was that for that. All right, now building a ramp. Building a ramp is one of the easier things to do, by itself, okay? But incorporating it into all these other things that you've done gets a little dicey. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to build a ramp, and we're going to starting the never-ending rotation and the Magi Spark. So this is a good hunk of stuff. And to help us, like, guide us through that, what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our cooldown manager so that I can more easily show you. Down here, I listed all the cooldowns. What this is the ramp setup. So what you're going to first do, and by the way, having or charges before this helps. In one of my previous ones, I encourage people to get charges with like orb or blast or whatever the case is. And a certain part of the community lost their shit because I think they thought I was in the middle of a mythic raid. But I'm gonna pan my camera around now. Like over here, there's no mobs. There's no mobs over here, and I don't see any hiding over here. We're fighting wooden cleave training dummies. Like, these guys aren't gonna like jump in at any time. They're just NPCs. So for those that were scared about the DPS meter while on training dummies, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. Anyway, we're gonna get some charges. So we're at full charges. And then we're going to use evocation into a touch, and then in between, evocation into a surge, and in between that surge and touch, we're going to dump our charges. And how do we dump our charges? That's right, barrage. So let's just see if we can do that. Then we are going to painfully watch this entire surge do nothing. And we're not going to fight or do anything. We're just going to wait for Arcane Soul, okay? So we'll start with Surge. I swear I know these names. We're going to start with Evoke into Surge and then a Barrage and Touch, okay? Evoke. Then fully channel. Surge. Dump. Like that. Now, this is pretty painful for me to watch because there's all these Procs popping up. And there's your Phoenix boy. He's spicy to date. This is about ready to expire, and then we're going to cast Barrage afterwards when this pops. See? Oh, see this guy up top? We're spamming Barrage until that thing pops. Okay? That was a lot to take in. I know it was. It was kind of scary. So I'm going to use Shifting Power just to kind of get things rolling here while you listen to me yab on. The key behind this is letting this channel first, all the way. Okay? You're going to you can move while you're doing this one, but you can't move while you're doing this one. So if you have to, use an Ice Flows. Okay? Whenever you do that one. And I threw out the Barrage and then the Touch kind of slow so you can see it. But let me show you something, okay? This is called Capturing with Touch. Depending on who you ask, that may trigger the shit out of you. Barrage has a travel time, right? See how it's quick, but it's moving. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick my hand up in the air like I'm flipping a coin or something like that. When you see that, that is me casting Touch. So I'm going to shoot Barrage, and as Barrage is flying through the air, I'm going to cast Touch. Okay, so that Barrage is going to be like over here, and then bam, Touch is instantly going to be on this mob here. So when that Barrage finishes and hits this dude, it's going to do this thing called Magi Spark. Magi Spark is baked in to your touch, okay? It's like a mini game that comes with touch. And it demands 3 things. And if it gets those 3 things, if you feed or do the mini game of Spark, or Magi Spark, you are rewarded with a shit ton of damage. So, let's see that capture first of all. We're going to shoot out Barrage, and while Barrage is in midair, we're going to touch on them, and then it will be captured by Barrage. Okay? So, in this minigame, we have to do missiles, we have to do blast, and we have to do Barrage. Okay? That satisfies the Spark minigame. Well, we know we're going to do Barrage first, right? So that's already checked off. And then we're going to do missiles and a blast. Now, here's the cool thing. When you use Arcane Surge, you get missiles. Okay? So that could be put right into this touches minigame. So we have missiles and barrage, right? So we already have that. So what are we missing? Just a blast, right? And we can incorporate that in. It's just a blast. So let's do this whole thing. We are going to evoke, surge, barrage, capture, touch. Okay. I'm actually going to turn the UI off just so you can see it. There's the evoke. And that's the opening. That's it. So you can see kind of here on my last spells, this is the barrage that is stuck right here, right after surge. This is the barrage, and then I barraged and then touched, used the missiles that I got from surge, blast to finish the minigame, and then barrage. Ta-da! You just did a ramp. But let's focus in on this Arcane Soul thing again. This triggers after your surge wears off. And it gives you clear casting every time you use barrage. That little purple thing that was over your head, right? It will give you clear casting every single barrage you cast out. Okay? And each barrage you cast out gets more and more powerful. Okay? This is part of your, I consider it part of your ramp, because it's like a continuation of what you've done. So be sure to dump your clear casting before you go into this phase. When you dump those clear casting, you're going to be hitting them with harmony, which is good. Plus, you're going to get all those clear casting back. So if you're like, oh, I want to hang on to those clear casting, you're going to get them all back. Okay. Now you can do, like, if you have Aether Attunement, if this procs, whether through a talent or through your force set, if that gets going while you're in Arcane Soul, I would totally use it and then continue barraging for its duration. But most of the time, I don't even care to weave in missiles, because smacking people with massive, 18, 22 million barrages is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So that's the ramp in a nutshell. And I know this sounds like a lot. I know it does. Just like whenever I rehearsed this, I was like, Jesus, this is a lot of shit. But this is how you play it. And what you can do is just download this WeakAuras and take it piece by piece. Work at your own speed if you want. And hopefully maybe other content creators, for like maybe a Shadow Priest or a Shaman, could put one of these together for me. So let's look at our review questions for building a ramp. What are the key components to a ramp? Okay, so what are the three, or let's just say 4. What are the 4 major components of it? And they're like, wait a minute. There's evoke, there's surge, there's touch, but you forgot barrage gets snuck in there, doesn't it? To satisfy this little boy's minigame, right? You can even say there's 5 components if you want surge, or after your surge, your Arcane Soul to be a part of those components. So I consider all of this as one thing. So to me, there are 5 components to a ramp. If you want to get technical, you could be like, oh, well, you also have to do missiles, and you also have to do blast to satisfy the touch. You can make this a 12-step ramp rotation if you want. But we're not crazy people. So there's that one. What does the Magi Spark minigame require? Okay, what 3 spells? You should have this memorized right now. What 3 spells does this Magi Spark that you get from touch require? Blast, barrage, missiles. That's your bread, butter, meat and potatoes of this whole spec. It's just asking you to, I don't know, do a rotation, really. Like, you will get those naturally within the duration of touch by just doing your rotation. And then later on, when you get a little better, you're like, how can I match up my burden and glory and possibly a proc, or maybe a trinket and a potion, with that final blast or barrage that you use to trigger touch with? Stuff like that, trying to min-max how much damage you're throwing into touch, is something that will come later, and something that is just something you personally are building upon. Now, let's take a look. What should you do before Arcane Soul? Remember, Arcane Soul is after Surge, you get... after Surge is all worn off, you get Arcane Soul, and then you're spamming barrages. And what do those barrages give you? They give you clear casting, don't they? And that clear casting only stacks to 3. So you want to get rid of those clear casting beforehand. Now, I wouldn't go crazy. Like, I wouldn't go like... Well, you know what? You could. Just go crazy with it. For now, just go crazy with it. Until you're like, I should probably hold off on one until after Surge or something of that nature. Because you would rather have the blast or the barrage damage than the missile damage. But all that's min-maxy stuff. Okay? And that's fine. But this spec and this setup and this stuff that I'm teaching you will get you gear cap. Like, this boy came from a 10. And that was a joke. So this spec can get you gear capped. And I know there's like 20 kins right now falling out of their computer chairs being like, whoa, bro, this isn't the meta spec. What the hell are you doing? I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just playing mage the best way I know how to play mage, brother. And I'm getting gear cap. Am I getting the best in slot from a mythic raid? No, because I don't like raiding. I don't like fighting one boss for 20 hours, okay? If I'm going to spend 20 hours somewhere, it's either going to be in BC Slabs, which I did that, or Gruul's Lair, or it's going to be someplace that I feel comfortable and at home with, okay? It's something I'm getting joy from. I don't necessarily get joy from raids. But this is totally not a raid spec. Actually, the meta spec seems really appropriate for raids. I don't have any experience in it, so I can't say like, oh, don't do that, it's trash, or whatever. Like, I have no idea. I don't raid. So take the advice of the experts. I'm just some dude. Alright, so what should you do before Arcane Soul? Dump your clear casting. Oh, we are on the final countdown. We're on the final lesson. So let's unclick that. Okay. Timing. Ooh, timing is something. Orb use and touch timing. Now, I want you to pay attention to this Touch of the Magi. I'm going to do my normal whatever, okay? I'm just going to go through a rotation, and then I want you to pay attention to 2 things. 2 things. Touch and shifting power. So these are the cooldowns here. So pay attention to touch and shifting power. So we'll start a ramp. Oh, I don't have charges for me to get that. Okay, now we've got shifting power. We're going to use that after our Arcane Soul is up. Now pay attention where touch is. 4 seconds should be a huge thing in your brain. 4 seconds, okay? Just remember that. If touch is at 4 seconds, get ready, okay? Because right now, it doesn't matter. So these things are going to come off cooldown way before the other things, and we'll just let it be. If you don't hesitate, if you're not talking, if you're not doing a tutorial, all these boys will end up being like 45. Okay. And then on the next round it'll be 4. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch over to UIs right now. Okay. And I'll identify what things are, and I'm going to turn the mic off, and then I'm going to just lay into these guys. Okay. This is the NFAC. This is the no messing around crew. Okay, so let me turn all this off. Okay, we're gonna just turn it off. Okay, and then we also need to get rid of our cooldown thing there, and then we'll switch our edit mode back to Arcane. Okay, so now we're back in what I feel most comfortable in. I can't do like full-on like timing-based rotations with a UI that's like everywhere. There's crap all over my screen. Like, I'm just not comfortable with that, so I can't do it. But I can do it here. So let's go ahead and get going here. Well, wasn't that fun? Now, what were you supposed to be learning from that? Let me show you. Let me turn all this back on. Now, oh wait. Turn the cooldown manager back on so that I can show you. Now, you may have to review what I was doing. It's difficult to explain in real time, but on your first cycle, people call it a big burn and mini burn, but on your first cycle, you've got 45 seconds across the board. Okay, so your touch, your evoke, your ramp is all synced to about 45 seconds. On your next time around, like on your next full time around, it's going to take you about 4 or 5 seconds to get to this touch again. So you're going to have to use evoke, surge, the barrage, and then the touch again. So once touch has about 4 seconds or 5 seconds on it, that's when you should start evoking. So you know you're going to, after this Arcane Soul, you know you're going to use shifting power. So before you get into this, dump your charges. And what you dump your charges with is, barrage, right? We know this. This is old lesson 1 crap. So dump your barrage, or dump with barrage, and then recover with orb, and then dump with barrage again. Okay. And then you can go into your shifting power. It is difficult to explain some timing because it is haste based. Some of it is haste based. For example, on my Arcane Soul countdown here, I know that I only have I'll be able to get that last barrage out at like 0.4, and I won't be able to get another one out after that. So after 0.4, I kind of disregard it and I move on with my rotation. When you saw me do my rotation, I had no buffs. I had no nothing. Like I had no I had no indication of where my spheres were, what Burden was doing, what Gloria was doing. I do have my buffs down here, but I've never looked at where the buffs are really supposed to be or whatever. I wasn't looking. It was just like kind of on the seat of my pants doing a rotation. But that was fine because it was just showing how things line up with your ramp and things like that. So let's ask some questions here. On Lesson 6 information, what is the primary use of orb? Recover. That is what I primarily use orb for. Is when after I dump with barrage, dump my charges, I recover with orb. And before I use shifting power, I use orb, right? Because shifting power takes 12 seconds off, which is 80 or 70% of an orb's cooldown. So it's nice to get rid of it because you're getting rid of it, or you're getting the orb because you just barraged, if that makes sense. So it's just kind of like to maximize your cooldown. So you're not like sitting on your cooldowns very much. And I have found that in my playstyle and how I do it, I don't use this second orb very much. What I do get a lot of is these extra orbs. And this is the final kind of final answer on the Leydrinker setup that I like using, where I don't do the double orb because like that extra orb damage that this gives you is kind of blah. And I don't have the need for that other orb because when I'm going and I'm buffed and I'm like in the thick of it, there is not time for a second orb. Like that doesn't exist. Extra time is not a thing. But I do use this a lot because this is a passive thing where it just shoots out an orb every now and then, which recovers charges. So it kind of bypasses that middleman of the other talent of having to cast that second orb. It just kind of bypasses that middleman and being like, well, every now and then I'll just shoot it out an orb, So that is when you would use orb. That's its like primary use. I consider it. And this last one is to discuss everything. All right, so here's the scenario I wanted to give. Everything except orb and shifting power are on cooldown. Okay, so everything except for orb and shifting power are on cooldown. All right. Touch has 15 seconds left on its rotation. Okay, so off cooldown, 15 seconds. Well, we know this guy reduces all cooldowns by 12 seconds. Okay. With just this information, what are your next 5 spells? Assuming you prioritize the timing over procs, meaning, you know, in a perfect world where you can perfectly predict your next spells. It's kind of a thought experiment. It's not necessarily a quiz. It's kind of a thought experiment. So if we have orb and shifting power available and we'll have touch in 15 seconds, well, it depends. Do I have charges? Like, if I have 4 charges, my first spell is going to be barrage, right, to dump the charges, because I'm going to recover then with orb, right? So that's 2. That's barrage, then orb. And then by that time, I would shifting power, or I could barrage afterwards. Barrage afterwards. So it'd be barrage, orb, barrage. That's 3. And then I would shifting power, which at that time would give me touch back again. So shifting power is 4, touch is 5. Let's take it a little bit farther. Touch gives you, let's just add a little something to here. Let's say you had clear casting, okay, and you got touch at this point. So we're like 5 or 6 spells in. You've got touch. Well, what does touch require for the Magic Spark minigame, right? Barrage, blast, and missiles. So you could add those theoretical, future predictee spells into your rotation. And how my brain works when I'm doing this is I imagine like this network of lines where each line is a permutation of the next 3 or 4 spells. And depending on what procs I get, kind of adjusts that line. It kind of moves it or shifts it to a different level of this number matrix in my brain of where's the next permutation possible. This permutation is just not possible, but this permutation could be. And that's what I'm constantly doing. I have gotten so much joy out of doing this. It's ridiculous. And I'm so glad you guys could stay with me. Like I said in the description, you can get this whole tutorial. And I'm going to put this mini display in here. And what this mini display is just this guy down here. Well, there's so much crap on my screen right now. It's a miniature version. So let me actually show you just briefly what it is. It should look very familiar. Let me unload this guy. Okay, and then we've got to change our UI. We don't need the cooldown manager. There we go. Now, I believe they are set up, correct? Yes. So, on my, actual UI, how I use this actual WeakAura is, you see I have my spheres there, okay? And my spheres will go... there's the Nether precision. There's the burden. There's the glory. There's the spheres. I have Aether Tune pop up. I'll have Surge pop up. And I'll have this Leydrinker pop up. So this is kind of just trying to show you all the procs here, not necessarily a rotation, but how all the procs kind of do their thing. And then this converts into the Arcane Soul afterwards. So that's it. And because you guys have stuck around and you've been troopers through this whole thing, I'm going to show you something that I haven't shown anyone else. Okay, it's my character list. Now, some people are pretty particular about their character lists, and I kind of am too. But I have all the mages, and I know what you're thinking right now. This guy has got a serious problem. But I want to tell you the story behind these, okay? Not each and every one, but just in general. Whenever, I've been diagnosed with, major depressive disorder. So, I've had kind of a bum life for a little bit, and, mentally. But what I have found since I started playing WoW in Classic is that mages bring me so much joy. I really don't know what it is about them, but particularly arcane mages bring me just so much joy. So whenever I'm feeling down, or even when I'm feeling happy, I'll get on one or level up one. Like a lot of these guys are low level, but you know, I try to take care of them with transmogs and level them up and get them some gear. And I really enjoy playing mages. And whenever I make these videos, I feel like part of it is I'm giving that joy that I've gotten to someone else. And when people comment, like when they're good comments of like, oh, thank you so much, I didn't know how this worked, or this really helped me out, or, you know, part of this was kind of goofy, but I understood most of it, or whatever. That, to me, is honestly one of the greatest feelings I could have. It's like I'm sharing my joy. Even though World of Warcraft made these mages, I feel like I love all these mages. They're all like my children. And I just wish that other people would at least give them a chance and see if they can get any joy from it. But anyway, I'm rambling at this point, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you can, check out the WeakAuras. And if you're a content creator, please make a shaman one or a shadow priest lesson guide. This is free content for you. This is content. You can make the content doing just what I did. And I did it using Leydrinker, which is not the meta, right, Kens? So that leaves Spellslinger with High Voltage wide open for anyone that wants to put it together and say, don't listen to that, idiot. Use my WeakAuras that has my name all over it, and my website, and my whatever, and my YouTube, and my Twitter, and blah, blah, blah. This can be used as a tool to teach. And I thought it was, I don't know, not to toot my own horn, but I thought it was kind of an ingenious way of displaying how you could teach someone a spec. And anyway, I appreciate you guys' time, and I will see you next time.